Welcome to our board meeting. It's 6 p.m. on July 20. Oh no, it is March 23rd, and I'd like to call to order the meeting. Mr. Hiddle, please call roll.
Mr. Mitchell.
Here.
Mr. Bostic.
Here.
Mr. Ford.
Here.
Mrs. McMacken.
Here. Okay, please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If there are no changes to be made to the minutes from February, may I get a motion to approve those?
So move.
Second.
Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion approved. And for tonight's agenda, if there are no changes to be made on that, may I get a motion to approve?
So move.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Mr. Bostic, do you have an Upper Valley Career Center update?
Well, we're meeting Monday, so I don't really have anything. I do have one other, well, I'll do it later. I went to the Tax Review Council meeting with the city. I'm on that committee. The Tax Incentive Review Council. So really, the only thing is out there by, with them, it's out on Country Club Road. They're extending that road. They have a TIF. Jeremy would know what that is, but it's, where they get the money to build it, and it'll open up 10 acres behind there for development. So that's really all I have, so.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
No one here to speak from the public, so we can move on to the treasurer's agenda with Mr. Hiddle.
All right. Are there any questions about any of the financial reports that you guys have? Everything is on target at this point, and nothing too exciting going on there. One thing I did want to bring up tonight is House Bill 1. Usually they save House Bill 1 for a major priority for the legislative branch, but this thing is a mess. Somebody who didn't know what they were doing with taxes has produced a bill that basically is going to increase everyone's property taxes by quite a lot. They're going to say, well, we're counterbalancing that because we're cutting your income tax. Well, what they've failed to mention is that the amount of income tax that most people in Piqua are going to pay is not going to equate to what the property tax changes are. We're looking at over $1 million of increased property tax value, or property tax payments from residents. So this is a direct tax on our fixed income people because they aren't paying the income tax, but now they're going to be paying more property tax. So hopefully this bill doesn't happen. But in the process of doing this income tax cut and this property tax increase, the school district actually is going to lose about $206,000 through that process. So on top of all the shell games of moving everything around and then raising property taxes on seniors, the district actually ends up $206,000 in the hole. So this bill is majorly flawed, and I would encourage everybody in the community to contact your state representatives and let them know that House Bill 1 is not something that is going to benefit the city of Piqua or its residents, because it's a shell game, and income taxes in Columbus are much different than income taxes in Piqua, Ohio, and it's the same situation with the property values. Our property values are fairly low and affordable compared to other areas, and then we're going to be jacking those up. And we already have residents that are struggling at this point, 92 years old and still paying massive amounts of property tax, for example. That's not okay then to turn around and say, hey, by the way, we're going to crank that up even more. So I just wanted to make the public aware House Bill 1 is out there, and if it happens, it's going to be a massive increase to your property tax bill.
Glenn and I attended the Ohio School Boards Association event this week, and they talked a lot about that, and a lot of districts are saying the same thing. It's not to the not only to the district's benefit, but not to the citizens' benefit. So they're asking a lot of the citizens across the state to speak out against it. So it's a good point.
Is that one of those things that goes on a ballot, or is that voted on or we just need to write letters or send emails?
Yeah, this is, it's a long, I don't want to get totally into the weeds, but basically, there is a bill in place that prevents our levies to grow as our community grows. So that's why communities have to constantly come back and ask for tax levies. If we eliminated that bill, this actually then wouldn't have created the problems that it's creating. But right now, we're at the 20 mil floor, so any change in the tax values is going to bump us off that floor, which means that we'll have to start collecting that tax again. So it's like it's an unintended consequence of passing this bill. It's going to end up generating more property tax revenue than what we're currently collecting.
And that's exactly what the speaker was saying in his talk to Dwayne, or to the group was, hey, it's kind of like you press this button, but 7 others over here get switched off, or 8 others will get accelerated. So, I mean, they're just, it's not a...
I don't know how people on a fixed income could even fathom to in some cases, probably, I could see where it could almost double people's property taxes. Like it's an absorbent amount of money we're talking about. Anyways, that's what I know about that.
It's good news.
I know, always bringing the good stuff. There's a lot more bills that are definitely not in favor of public school systems, but this one would directly have an impact on all of our citizens, so I wanted to highlight that.
Is there a place that they can go to? Is there like a generic form that they can send that's an already written email that they just can sign their name to and send it, or anything?
Talking points?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will get that information. That's a good, I mean.
I don't know if that's
we're
even-
working on that through my organization, but I don't know if there's one for the citizens to be able to do that in general. So, I mean, if people want to email me, I will get them in touch with somebody that can help them in that direction.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
that's all I have.
All right. Thank you. Can I get a motion to approve the treasurer's agenda?
So moved.
All right. Mr. Hiddle, please call roll.
Mr. Bostic.
Aye.
Mr. Ford.
Aye.
Mr. Mitchell.
Aye.
Mrs. McMahon.
Aye. All right, and the treasurer's agenda is approved. And moving on to the superintendent's report.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Thomas.
We are at that critical time of the year where we're starting to work with our seniors to make sure that they have all the requirements that they need to have in place in order to get their diploma and graduate on time. First off, to all senior parents, we've sent this out, but we do have a senior parent information link on our website. So if they just go to www.piqua.org, they can see all the senior information. So as we get new information that goes to the seniors, we also put that on the website so that parents have good access to it, because sometimes seniors forget to take that home and give that to their parents. So lots of good important information there. But Daryl works a lot at trying to keep people up with their credits and getting all those requirements in. So we've got the students that have been with us all along that we continue to work with, but we also get students many times that might move into the district, or they might get released or kicked out of online programs because they're not meeting their requirements, and they end up coming back to us. They're either 18 or almost 18. They might have 3 out of their 21 credits that are needed, and there's just no way we can do anything to get those kids caught up and graduated on time. And that takes a hit on our graduation rates. So that happened recently with a pretty significant event, and I thought it was important that Daryl give you guys an update and kind of explain what that looks like, because it will affect our graduation rates, and there's really nothing we can do about it. So Daryl agreed to come and talk to you a little bit about what happened, and then you can ask questions so we can make sure you understand the consequences of what took place. So Daryl, thank you for being here.
No problem, thank you. So if you want to share the handout, in the last 2 years, we've had 57 students leave Piqua High School to pursue some form of online learning. In that same amount of time, we've had 28 students return, and of the 28 that have returned, 17 of those students are credit deficient. And so that puts our guidance department and our teaching staff at a disadvantage When a student comes back to the school without the necessary credits to maintain the level of education that they're at, we have to come up with a plan to try to get them back on track. And so on that sheet, I listed some of the key components that we have to work through on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. We might go a decent amount of time and not have to address anything. And then, perfect example, just this semester, we had 6 seniors return to us, and we had to come up with a game plan pretty quick. And the conversations are not easy. When someone that's almost 18 years old walks in the door and says they want a diploma, but they don't have all of the pieces in place to earn that diploma this year, we have to have that tough conversation about what that's going to look like for their future in education. So I included some reasons kids leave for online school, things like truancy, mental, physical health, living arrangements. Some of our older students, they do try to work part-time, or some work full-time jobs, and then obviously going to school as well. And then social conflict steps in there from time to time. The reasons for returning to school, interestingly enough, from an online academy, the number one reason is truancy. And I'll share something here in a little bit that was very interesting. This just came about in the last 2 weeks with that. We also have kids that come back. They say it was difficult to work in an online school setting and not have the direct support that they needed. They didn't realize it until after the fact. And then the frustration with technology. Sometimes it takes a while for the online schools to get set up. So ultimately for us, the biggest challenges when they return. Number one, we have credit recovery. We have to make up the time that they missed. If it's 2 weeks, not that big of a deal. We can plug them right back into a classroom. If it's a semester or a year, then we really have to put our minds together and work with the guidance team to try to come up with a plan. Make up state testing can be frustrating. You only get a certain number of opportunities to take a test, and if you miss one, we have to figure out how to get them back on track with that. And then without a doubt, probably the thing that is the most challenging for the counselors is to come up with scheduling. If a student returns to us in the middle of March, we have to determine where do we put them. What do we do with a student that has missed X number of days or weeks or months of school? Obviously, our first priority is to put them in front of our great teachers and give them an opportunity to learn from them. But when you have to put them in front of a teacher and the teacher says they're 7 weeks behind, that puts us at a pretty big disadvantage. So those are things that we've had to work through. The other things that don't get talked about a whole lot, but when a student returns, sometimes they have an IEP, and our special education department has to update the IEP and potentially an ETR, and that's time consuming, especially if it's out of compliance. We have to work with the transportation department. They show up on a Monday and they're ready to start school on Tuesday in whatever setting we put them in. And so we have to change bus routes and get kids set up for that in a very short amount of time. Mr. Heidenreich, I work with Mrs. Funderburg a lot. Our students that come and go, we've got technology that is ours that we have to retrieve. So myself and Krista Hoying, we work very hard to make sure that we get our expensive technology back. And at the same time, when a student returns, we have to reissue new technology and set up all the accounts and all the programs that they're going to need to have success with the classroom learning. So one of the things that I don't deal with a whole lot, Mrs. Schneider and our guidance department deals with a lot, is the requesting and the receiving of student records. And sometimes it's difficult to get a hold of a live person and explain to them, they're telling us that they earned a couple credits with you. We don't want to put them in classes that they've already taken. So we have to sit and wait and put in a request for records and try to navigate that. And then the final piece, and I bring this one up because it just happened in the last week. Actually happened in the last 2 weeks. We hired Krista Hoying to work with our truancy students and to help alleviate that challenge. And in the last couple weeks, she's getting notices from juvenile court to attend hearings. And so I'm questioning that. What's going on? Why is the court contacting you? And she says, well, the school system that they're enrolled in might be based out of Cincinnati or Columbus. They're told that they need to be accountable for student attendance, and if a student is truant, they're filing charges. Well, guess where the charge comes? It comes to Miami County. The student lives in Piqua. We're responsible. So now we're using our own resources to work with students that aren't necessarily ours, but what we're finding is that once they get to that point of truancy, the online school's intention is to withdraw them. Therefore, we have to pick up the pieces. Krista has to go to court and deal with the truancy aspect of it, and then we have to come back in and re-enroll them and get everything going. So if you remember, I was here several years ago talking about the closure of ECOT. And that was very, very challenging. We had 60-something students at that time where the Ohio Department of Education was asking us, what are you doing? What are you doing with those students? And my first initial response was, I don't know them, so I'm not doing anything. So we have to go out and hunt for them, figure things out. And right now it's a little bit different scenario, but it's a challenge because we don't know how well they're doing when they're there. Obviously, we've had more kids leave than come back, so some of them are having success, but the ones that aren't, ultimately, we're responsible. We have to deal with that. So it's been a long process. I feel for all the people in our district that put the time and energy into these things, and I know it's frustrating, and it's a challenge for our teachers when we ask them to get kids caught up that they haven't had the opportunity to work with. So that's kind of where we're at. And I'm more than willing to answer any questions anybody has.
Would it be beneficial for us to have our own online school?
Well, Scott and I lived this a couple years ago. With the pandemic, we had our own online school. At the high school, we had over 300 students that did online during that time. It was successful for some. It was not successful for others. And the example that I'll give, I would have parents contact me on a regular basis. I'm sure Mr. Bloom had people contact him. In a classroom, if a student has a question, they raise their hand, teacher comes over and helps them. Might be that 5 students have that same question. Teacher can stop the class and address everybody and resolve the matter and get them moving forward. In an online school, student has a question, they send an email or they send a direct message and they sit and wait. And if there's nobody logged on at that exact time, if the teacher's engaged with another student for another matter, after 10 or 15 minutes, what we were hearing from parents was nobody responded, so kids shut the computer and that was the end of that. And they wait till the next day. So if we were to do our own version of online schooling, my recommendation is that it would have to be very, very closely monitored, and we would have to be very selective. Very, very selective. And I say that because Mr. Messick and Mr. Taylor and I, on a regular basis, we go through students' course history, and we can, and not every scenario, but with a high degree of accuracy, we have a very good understanding after one semester of school what kids we're going to have to work closely with and what kids we're going to have to develop plans for. And so we would have to use that information and that data. If parents come to us and ask us about online schooling, we would have to share with them, here's what we know based on a semester or a year, and it is our belief that that is not the correct path for your child. So
Just more thoughts to that. When the governor shut schools down in 20, we had to obviously do that with everybody because there was nobody coming in. The next year when we came back, we had to offer an option for people to do online because of COVID and the virus and pandemic and everything that was happening. So we did that and put that into place, but many students throughout the year, as he said, wanted to come back because it was a struggle. So we had all this influx of in and outs, and like he said, when they're here, there's a clear pathway. When they enter high school, the counselor meets with them, and there's a clear path on what they do and making sure everything happens. it's very loose when they go home, and it was so not successful, and we had so many kids that we had to really make sure we got caught up over these next couple years to graduate. It wasn't a good use of our time and our energy. After that, they said you can continue to do it online, but now you have to get your own IRN, which is your own school identity, and you have all these requirements you have to put in place to make it happen. So it's a lot more than when they shut things down and said offer that to help people. Now it's a full school program with a lot of other requirements to it, and a lot of school districts just found it wasn't viable. It wasn't really an easy thing to put together. But more importantly, once they go to that online program, it's just so hard to keep them focused. They have to log on so many hours, so you have to track that. They have to complete so many assignments to stay on track. We have to track that. Questions. I mean, it just keeps going. There's a lot going, and we're reluctant. When a student says, "Hey, I want to go online. I'm going to withdraw so I can go over to Adela or wherever that is." You're reluctant to let that not let it happen because they have that choice, but we worry because we wonder, will they come back? Because if they go there and they're not successful over a year or two, and they get kicked out of that program because they can do that. They see that the kid's not going to graduate and they don't have enough hours. They can say, we're going to withdraw you at this time, and we have no choice as a public school other than we have to accept them. So when they come to us, 17 and a half, 18 years old with 3 credits, and there's 2 months left in school and they have to have 21 to graduate, it's an impossible feat. But now they're registered with us, and then that goes on a report card, and it looks like we've failed a student when we never even had that student all along, or we only had him for 2 months. And the same thing would happen if a kid would move into the community and the courts, or they come to register and they're almost 18 with 3 credits because that's all they earned at that district. Now once we enroll them, they're ours and they're our responsibility. So it's really hard to put that plan together quickly and make it happen. So, our determination was it was much better to keep them with us, keep them on a graduation path, let the counselors do the tracking, let the principals work with them, let us get them on a plan. And even at that, Daryl works really hard with some of those students he talked about to keep them going, but at least they're in our care and we have a lot more influence rather than they're at home, maybe logging in, maybe not. And there's not a lot, we can't go knock on the door and say, you have to log on. We can send messages, we can call, we can do all that, but they're just out of our care and it's just so difficult. But I wanted you to be aware this happens typically, you get to this point in the year, and if a kid's not successful with an online school, the online school will not keep that student because they're going to take a hit. And they're allowed to withdraw the kid and say, you're not successful with us. We're not allowed to do that. Once the kid withdraws from there, they'll call us and say, you have to enroll that kid now because they live in your community. And in many cases, we didn't even know the kid. We've never met them.
I will say that what we do, the education that we provide our students at the high school, is very, very effective for a large majority of them. It is very effective. And for the ones that struggle with the traditional settings that we offer, we have multiple other alternative settings in place. We have a second shift program, we have a workplace learning program, we utilize ACEs, we have what I would call now, and I would say this is post-COVID where this came about, we have a full-bore credit recovery program. We are still recovering from 2 and 3 years ago. We really are, and we've got 3 wonderful teachers that they spend all day, every day dealing with, trying to work with that credit recovery aspect. So.
Any questions? Thank you, and thank you for your work.
No problem.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome to leave. You don't have to stay if you don't want to,
I appreciate
or you're welcome to do that too. Enjoy your
You
evening.
guys have a great night, okay?
Thank you, Daryl.
Mr. Bloom just would like to talk about state testing that's coming up and some scheduling changes maybe. Yep.
Let's give you an update. Good evening. So we will begin state testing here very shortly. The window for that opens next week, and it'll run through May. For our younger grades 3 through 8, we can do that testing during their typical school day. It's a full grade level, and we can do that. The high school is a little bit different because of the way that it's organized. those end of course tests are only in a certain percentage of the students that would be taking them. So for example, not every student at the high school is in algebra. Not every student's in geometry. So what we've done for the past few years, and what I would like to recommend again, is that we utilize a 2-hour delay for that testing period for those students. That allows just the tested students to focus on the state assessment. It allows the teachers to proctor those without any other students in the building. It removes all of those distractions, and it provides the set amount of time that the students need. The first ones do begin next week. We'll start with the earliest ones are English 10. It's English 2, actually, is what it's called. And that is one of the 2 required end of course assessments that students do have to have a passing score on to graduate. So that will start next week. In April, we'll go to U.S. Studies and Government. And then the late April, Biology, and then we'll finish in the first week of May with Algebra, which is the second of the 2 end of course assessments that students have to have a passing score on. And we'll finish with Geometry. So again, we've done this in the past. It's just with 5 tests that are 2 parts each. That is 10 2-hour delays, but it is a much easier process than trying to define a space and provide that really academic setting for those students to excel in.
What about, let's say you have a student, like I think my son is a perfect example, who's in English Comp 2 at Edison.
Right.
Are they still required to take this English 10 test, even though they've almost completed a whole first year of college work at Edison?
Some of them are a little bit different when they're doing College Credit Plus. I believe with the end of course, we have to have, I can double check on that.
If they take College Credit Plus, they don't have to
They
take
should
it.
be
That
okay
meets the
with
requirement.
College Credit Plus.
Okay.
They can use that score for, basically they have to have an end of course attempt and a score that goes with it. If they're in College Credit Plus, typically they're able to use that.
Okay, that's fine. I was just curious. I didn't know.
Yep. Yeah, there's an actual crosswalk that the state puts out and said, here's your CC Plus course, and this is what that looks like.
Okay.
Yep.
There's AP. There are other options. ACT, non-remediated scores. There are other options for students. The vast majority of our students will use the state end of course assessment, and it does bear mentioning that they have to be competent. I just want to make sure that we remind everybody there are 2 types of scores that students have to have on this: a competency and a proficiency score. Students have to be competent on algebra and ELA 2, language arts 2. Those are the 2 that are required for diploma in Ohio, just those 2. We're required to provide the other assessments, but it's just those 2 in Ohio.
That's very similar to what was a standardized test when we were in high school that we had to take that.
I didn't have to take them.
No? So, okay.
Yeah.
It is. They were proficiencies back then,
But it
and
is
they
similar.
Yeah,
and
that's
then
right.
OGTs, and now these are end of course exams.
Okay.
The biggest difference is, as opposed to a few years ago, they don't have to have a certain number of points across all of those tests. It's really those 2, ELA 2 and Algebra 1, that dictate that pathway to graduation.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We currently use a system called OneView for registration and tracking with our students, but we've had some issues with that. We've not really been fully satisfied with it over the last couple of years. So over the last couple of years, we've done a study on what else is out there and what would be better for parents as well as us when collecting that information. So we came up with Final Forms, which is what has been used for our athletic program. So a lot of parents have already been exposed to it. Did some research, kind of vetted it out, and we're trying it right now with some of our registrations. And Mindy heads that up, but I thought it'd be good to have her do a quick just review with you what it is, and then we can also make that more, we're just kind of getting it out to the public as our kindergarten registrations are beginning, so we can get that going. You can see the OneView or the online forms up there. We'll be changing that here soon over to the Final Forms and getting that process in place. So Mindy, could you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So starting for the 23-24 school year, so that's next school year, we're going to be moving completely to Final Forms for all academics. So if you have a child that attends Piqua City Schools currently, next year, actually at the end of this school year, you're going to get an email from Final Forms saying that you will need to create a new username and password. And then we will open up sometime in the summer the back to school forms through Final Forms. So they'll have to complete all of that. The one change that current students will see is with one view, a lot of information would populate from one year to another. It will not populate for this first year for final forms. So you'll have to fill out everything completely, and then next school year, or the following year when we do final forms again, it'll generate that information back. So current parents, one more time, we're just going to ask you to fill out everything for next school year. This summer and at back to school events, you'll have to have a new username and password. If you already have athletics going on, you can use that current username and password. So that will be beneficial for our current parents. For new parents or for parents who are getting ready to register for kindergarten for this next school year, we did open that up for kindergarten registration only. So that will all be happening. So I wanted to kind of show you where you can find that out on the website, because it went live today. So we had about a handful of parents that tried to register their kids for kindergarten next year using OneView, which makes sense because that's what they're used to using. I sent an email out today to all those parents that we did get those forms for with directions. Good news is Final Forms is very user-friendly on your phone, where OneView is not. And I can tell you that 2 of those parents out of the handful have already started to work their Final Form magic on here, because I can look at that right now live. So if you are, if you do have a child who's going to be 5 on and before August 1st and you're ready for kindergarten registration, you go down to the bottom of our webpage. There's 2 places you can find kindergarten registration at. One's under student registration tab, and one is under the news banner where it says kindergarten registration. So when you click on that news banner, you have when the registration events are going to be taking place and who to call, or actually who to call for the registration events. And then if you would like to jump on and get onto Final Forms and get that started, you click right there. And then this page gives all the step-by-step directions and everything you need for kindergarten registration. So schedule your appointment, gather your documents. And then if you want to complete the online registration, the link that says PiquaOhioFinalForms.com, you go there. And under parent, you just create a new account. And again, if you already have a child who's in athletics at the junior high and high school, you can use that account then to do your kindergarten registration. So any questions from the board on any of that?
Maybe
We're
I'll
all learning,
record-
so it's a new process. I had one phone call today, so kind of walk through it a little bit with one of our secretaries. She's calling the parent back and saying, all you need to do is sign it, you know, trying to figure out those nuances. Yes.
What you might want to do is just record what you just did in 30 seconds and mail it out as a video.
Well,
to
it
the
would be
email.
nice, but I don't have all those parents' email addresses yet. So we are collecting a lot of this information. We're going to be sending what I just have up there to them so that they'll have that step by step. It'll either be through the mail or through email. And if they watch this, then Clint, they'll have this already. So.
Yeah.
Any other questions? It's going to be fun. It's a lot more user friendly on both our ends and from what I hear from parents at other school districts on their ends as well. So, thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Only other things I wanted to share was our senior breakfast is coming up. That's March 31st at 8:30 at the high school. Free food. It's free to any senior citizens. You don't need any tickets. And we're going to have our show choir performing, as well as some students from the musical Mamma Mia that's going to be running this weekend. They're going to sing a couple of songs, and then we have our jazz band. And I can't say it enough. We have an award-winning music department that's amazing. It'll be great entertainment, and we love to do that. We love to put our kids in front of our seniors, and it's just our way of appreciating all the support they give us. So hope we can get a good crowd for that. I mentioned the musical. That's this weekend. If you don't have your tickets for your reserved seating, there are still a few left over. You can buy them all the way up to the musical, so you can come that evening. They will still purchase them online if they come that evening. Doors to the CPA, the auditorium, will open at 7:30, so no one has to get there early because the seats are reserved. They'll come in, if they don't have a ticket, you can scan the code there and just buy your tickets right there, show the person at the door at the CPA, and you'll have a reserved seat as well. So hope we get the full houses for those. And the final thing is we started negotiations this week with our staff. All we have done so far is exchange proposals, and we anticipate good negotiations. We've got a great staff and great relationships, so we look forward to that and wrapping up that work before the end of the school year. So that's it for my report.
Okay, thank you. You can proceed with your agenda.
Sure. I'd like to recommend the board approval of the attached donations and grants. So we had a number of donations to our Veterans Night that we had out of the basketball program. It was, again, a great turnout. We appreciate all the people that supported that. We had some donations to our Girls Night Out, Boys Night Out program that we accepted. Another great evening that we had. French Oil donated some money to support our Piqua Science Olympiad. Piqua Education Foundation for a garden tower through an education grant, and then Walmart is sponsoring our hearing and vision screenings this year that we do with in conjunction with Edison nursing program. So we appreciate that. Recommend the board approval of the Piqua High School state testing schedule that Mr. Bloom talked about. Would like to recommend board approval of the requested overnight trip from the Piqua High School Key Club to the District Leadership Conference in Columbus, Ohio on April 1st and 2nd. They do that each year. Recommend the board approval of the enrollment of Mel de Gavre from France to the Piqua High School for the 23-24 school year as a foreign exchange student from the ASSE International Student Exchange Program. They're a great group that we've worked with. They provide us with really good solid exchange student programming, so we're going to welcome him. And then recommend board approval of the attached list of library books from Piqua Central Intermediate School for disposal and removal from the inventory of the Piqua City School District. Those books are just outdated and worn out. And then recommend the board approval of the attached list of equipment for disposal and removal from the inventory of the Piqua City School District. Again, just old equipment. We always salvage what we can from that technology and whatever we have there, and otherwise we want to discard it. So that's it.
Okay, thank you. If there aren't any questions, can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the superintendent's agenda is approved. And we'll move on to the personnel agenda.
Sure. Tony's not here. He's actually at a job fair. This is hiring season, so Wright State had a job fair this evening. He's there interviewing some candidates for the few positions that we have still open. He did send you the updated kind of changes that are happening, and I think he answered any questions that you may have had. So are there any questions that you might have?
I don't have any questions.
Otherwise, go ahead and seek approval then.
All right, can I get a motion to approve the personnel agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All right, Mr. Hiddle, can you call roll, please?
Mr. Bostic.
Aye.
Mr. Ford.
Aye.
Mr. Mitchell.
Aye.
Mrs. McMacken.
Aye. All right, motion carries, and the personnel agenda is approved. No one here to speak on non-agenda items, so we can move on to our new business items.
The first item on there is the contract with Meta Solutions. This is an annual contract, and it supports all of our progress book through our fiscal software, data maps, and those type of things. We may be switching from data maps to a different program, so we're going to approve this, but we may drop that piece out of it and switch to something else. But we're working through that process right now, but this is when we typically approve this, so we still have time to adjust it as we move forward. So that's the first item that we have. Any questions about that?
All right, can I get a motion to approve this contract?
So moved.
Second.
All right, Mr. Hiddle, please call roll.
Mr. Mitchell.
Aye.
Mr. Ford.
Aye.
Mr. Bostic.
Aye.
Mrs. McMacken.
Aye. Motion carries, and the contract is approved. Next item.
Next item we have is the approval of the kitchen alterations for summer 23. Archon was the low bidder through that process. And so they've done work for us before at the junior high, and everything has worked well. So I don't have any concerns with moving forward, and it's within our budget range that we expected the project to be, so.
I don't know, I've never done a kitchen renovation at a school, but is that in line for what a normal kitchen renovation would be? But you're not getting a new one, you're just kind of updating, what are you doing, updating appliances or?
This isn't even including the appliances. This is actually the structure, so there's walls being replaced and moved, spaces being opened up. We're actually moving the kitchen line out of the commons and putting it into the kitchen, so then all that shifts backwards inside the room. Then that opens up space in the commons to allow for more seating.
Gotcha.
So that's what's happening. The envelope, the building, the structure of the kitchen, you can't do much with, but the inside of that is all getting sort of shifted backwards, and then the lines will come in to that kitchen area.
Okay.
So there's a lot more internally going on. But when you get into the nuts and bolts of it, you're talking about there's air handlers that are above there, there's the hood, and the hood has to be adjusted, which is a hole in the roof, so that has to be patched and moved and flipped, and so it's a lot more technical when you get into
Right.
the pieces once you start trying to move things from where they used to be laid out. So, and it's just, I mean, it was built we're at it 43 years ago, actually longer than that, when it probably was first designed. So, there's things that we don't use anymore. There's plumbing that needs to be replaced. I mean, you can go through the whole list of the insides of that building that need to
Just
be
the
taken.
efficiency of the kitchen staff being able to work back there with the food and serve at the same location rather than fixing it, wheeling it out, setting it up, and how they do it right now, all that will move into that kitchen area, so it'll be much more efficient on their work.
It'll be nice, very nice.
So then, will they still use a lot of the appliances that are back there now, or will
Yeah,
have to
we're
get
only
new?
purchasing 3 or 4 different pieces of equipment. It's not very much. I was supposed to meet with Jen about that today, and then we had a switch, so we're meeting tomorrow about, I think it's only 3 things that really we need to order, so, to make things more efficient. So, I mean, and it's fine. I mean, the kitchen's self-funding this, like they're able to do this, so it's not really coming out of general fund money or anything like that. This is a project that the kitchen has saved to be able to do. So.
It's gonna be a really nice look too. It's gonna look awesome.
I mean, that's gonna go along with all the renovations that you've had at the,
It's really the last
is it the last thing for the high
That's
school?
it.
for the high school. Yep.
This is it, last step.
Yep.
Sort of nice done. Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Almost there.
Huge.
There'll be a lot going on again this summer just because there's some work that needs to be finished from last summer on the floor in several spots, and some doors that have to be fixed. You'll see there's still some brick missing from different places that has to be replaced from where they've cut doors in. So there's some stuff that'll still get done by Broomball this summer.
Yeah.
So it'll be another active summer, but then hopefully we'll be done with the high school building.
Good.
Okay. May I get a motion to approve the bid from Archon?
So
So
moved. Second.
Mr. Hiddle, please call roll.
Mr. Ford,
Aye.
Mr. Bostic,
Aye.
Mr. Mitchell,
Aye.
Mrs. McMacken.
Aye. All right, motion carries and the bid is approved. So one more thing, we're going to be adjusting our July meeting to the 17th instead of the other date,
July 20th.
instead of July 20th. So may I get a motion to approve that change?
So moved.
Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, opposed? All
We'll
right.
get that updated on the board page on our website, so it's clear.
Okay, great. And our next regular board meeting will be April 27th here at 6 p.m. Can I get a motion to approve this or adjourn this meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? right, motion carries, and this meeting is adjourned.